Good afternoon and welcome back to Plan of Craft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be finishing off our frame. Now bear with me one moment, my camera just seems to knock itself. So let's just move that slightly. So, hi Deb. Hopefully you can see the chat a little bit better. It's looking a little small. Let's just see if I can kind of improve that a little. So let's make that a bit bigger. There we go. Put it back over here. Okay, so far we've got our background to our frame. We've got all our colouring done. But now we kind of need to finish it off. So let's take this out. So at the moment it's white on white, which can look a little bit boring. Just a little. So if you like the white on white look, that's fine, stay with it. If not, here's what we're going to do. So I've chosen a piece of card that is going to match the wall that this is going to be hung on. So it's going to look like a floating frame. But I've also stamped another little image that we can put over the top. So I'm thinking it'd be really nice to have the mount kind of follow the same silhouette but with a bit of a gap. So if you're wondering how you can create an offset with a mount, I'm going to be showing you how to do that. So if you're watching, don't be afraid to say hi and let me know that you're there. And if you have any questions at any point about how we got to this point or anything that I do during this next bit of workshop, please do say so. There's no such thing as a silly question. So we're all beginners once. So for starters, let's do our scan. So we could put this in the scan mat, but not everybody has one. So usually I tend to default to the scan mat. I thought it would be good to do it from a cutting mat for a change. So we can get away with a cutting mat because our card is really thick, so we're not going to get any ghosting through that at all. Now, if we wanted to scan around this outside edge, we would have to place it somewhere in the middle. Okay, so if we were wanting to create a frame or an envelope or something that wants to take into consideration, say, a shaped edge down this edge, then you would want to position that centrally. But because what we're focusing on is this centre panel here, then what we can do is we can pop that up to our 0, 0 mark up in the top left corner. So we'll just move that slightly, so up here, because we just want to get this bit here. Okay. We want to press it down nicely so it's nice and flat, because we don't want to have any of those edges curling up that might catch the mechanism of our cutter. Okay. Now, if you don't have a ScanNCut and you're using a brand, so let's say a Silhouette or a Cameo, then you can use the PixScan or the PixMat for that same function, or just scan it in using your regular scanner and take it into your design software and work from there. Okay, so hopefully, fingers crossed, yay, it worked today. There we go. So I'm going to load my mat. Okay, and we're going to go to scan. Now, because we want to cut out our design from something else, in this case our coloured card, what we're going to want to use is ScanNCut data. So I'm just going to tap that. Next, it's going to say, do you want to scan this in colour or black and white? Yeah, it's all media card from Paper Mill Direct Deb. So because we've got really light lines in our background, we want to make sure that we leave that in colour. So anything that is low contrast that you think it might struggle to pick up, colour is generally the way to go. The other thing to note is I've been doing a lot of little bits of scans. So my scan area at the moment is set to 12 by 6, which we can see just here. Okay, we need to adjust that back to the full 12 by 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap our spanner. We're going to tap on the scan area. And then we have a list to choose from. So 12 by 12, nice and easy. And OK. We're going to go OK again because we're happy with the colour. And through it goes. Now, if you're working on a surface that you're scanning to do this and it's not sticking fully to the mat, try not to worry too much at this point because we're just using it to get that data. We're not actually going to be doing any cutting. So we can now see our image and we want to frame that image so that it's only focusing on that section of the sheet. So we're going to move in our arrows. Like so. So for this section you need to bear in mind that where you've got your antique linen stamping, if this goes outside of that framed area, you just want to be a little bit wary of that. Okay, so I'm going to go okay. Just going to have a think about it. Good point to ask any questions if you have them. And the smaller the area that you're doing, the quicker this bit will be. Okay, and there we go. So it's done the scan, but at this moment in time it hasn't done the trace. So you can see there's no black line showing. So then if we go to round the outside, which is what we wanted to do, then it's going to think about it and trace it. But now we can see that it's kind of missing our outline, which is what I wanted it to do ideally. So let's take the card off the mat, bring it back over, and let's change to overhead. So remember we did our guideline, and although we as human beings can see it, the machine is struggling a little. So what can we do? So you have two options. You can make these lines stronger with a pencil ready to erase after, or you can work that frame into your design. So if we take an Inktense pencil and you want it to fit with the colours, so it could be a nice soft grey, it could be a kind of bluey grey, would be quite nice. You want it to be reasonably light, so I'm going to go for Payne's Grey, which has like a bluey tinge to it. And very lightly we're going to go down these outside areas where our guide is. So just shade lightly along that guide, especially in this section here, because we don't want to overwhelm our tree too much, and up these edges here. You should have something that looks a little like that. So we've got our lines are now slightly stronger. But what I'm also going to do, rather than leaving them like that, because I don't want them to look like they're these outlines, I'm going to soften it with a water brush. Okay. I'm just going to go over that line. And then where it touches other colours, I'm going to kind of just pull that in. So it should look nice and soft by the time that we've done it. So just blend that out along that guide. Don't forget to do the little bits. Like so. And we'll turn it around, we'll do the other side as well. So it's worth having a look on Paper Mill at the moment to see what they've got, because they've got my 580 that I use quite a bit when we're doing things like paper wrap boxes on offer at the moment. So I'm just going to soften that line down into the diamante section and just blend out these lines so that we're not getting a harsh edge. Now we're going to create an offset in a minute. So by doing that, it's going to look like it's already on a little bit of a 3D mount. So if I hold that up there, you can see that we've got kind of a shadow effect going on, which looks pretty cool. So now we can pop that back on that, back into the same place. Press that down. Now, obviously at this point I've used very little water. If yours is a little bit wetter, then leave it for a moment before you do this next step. But I'm going to go reset, OK, ScanNCut data. We've already changed our settings, so we can go start and it can go through. Okay, I'm going to frame that image, so I'm bringing it in a little. I'm going to go OK, and let's try again. Now if on this second pass you still don't get the results that you want, you can go back, you can darken that outline if you want to. Or it could just be that there's a tiny fraction that you missed. Okay, so now we're going to go around the outside again. Let me just see if I can remove that glare a little bit. Okay, that's not really helping. Take the brightness down a bit. There we go. That's looking a lot better. So we can now see that it's got most of that frame where we want it, apart from this right hand edge. So there's a little bit that is a bit too pale for it to pick up. I'm going to go into my settings. Let's see if we can pull it back. So we can go up to, and see how it does. Sometimes this will work, sometimes it won't. Yes, it hasn't quite got there. I'm going to try it on 2 just in case. If not, we can always add a little bit more of that shading. Oh, no, that definitely didn't work. Okay, so I'm going to reset that back to 5. I'm going to go preview even though I know I'm not going to use it. So let's get this back in here. Overhead. A little bit more, and it's this area here where it's struggling, so I'm just going to dot that back in, even though it means that we're going to lose a little bit of our tree detail. Sometimes you just have to go with it. There we go. I'm going to do the same over the other side because they may as well match now. So, a bit more just there. Okay. So just be cautious when you head into these kind of little foliage bits in here, because like I said yesterday, although our distress ink and our distress oxides haven't been totally dry, as soon as you go back over them with water they'll reactivate. Okay, so I'm going to go back into that 0, 0 position. Okay, and home to reset, and we'll do that process one last time. Okay. Oh dear, you still haven't power cuts, Linda. It's a good job Ian's not here, else he'd be teasing you saying, have you paid the bill? He's incorrigible like that. Okay, so here we go again. But you haven't missed much so far, Linda. All I've done is in the lighter sections of the image where we've just got our guideline, I've just gone along the edge of that with Payne's Grey ink tints, and then soften that with the water brush in the hope of it being able to see that frame a bit better. So hopefully now when I go to the outside edge, oh, there must be a tiny fraction where I can't quite see the line. So let's see if we can work out where it is. So if you are trying to diagnose this on your own image, if you follow this line down here, it goes wiggle, 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 and it stops and it kind of goes back on itself. It's that point where it stops and goes back on itself is where your line is going to be missing. So we've got probably about there. Let's see if I can just get it to So what I'm going to do, while this is scanning, is just draw that line, and then I'll blend it out with water after. There's nothing that says that you have to blend these things out straight away. So, there we go. And down the other side, it looks perfectly okay. Now, the leaf bit in that next section. Again, because remember we had that little bit of double stamping. I'm not too surprised it's struggling a little bit with that, but I'm going to leave that. By the time that we've done our offset, a lot of that's going to be fixed. And the same is going to go for down here as well, where we have our antique linen stamping. So, as I've just fixed that bit of an outline, we'll just, come on, do it this time. Be good. Okay, frame in. Okay. So do say hi and let me know that you're watching. Can't really see in the software unless you actually comment and say hi. Those of you that saw yesterday's first part for this workshop, have you had a go to see if you have some stamps that you could use for this technique? How on earth? I do all that and it's useless. Oh dear. Okay. Let's try again. We'll go back up view, preview, and see if that's going to fix it. No, it's just not wanting to do it today, is it? Oh dear. Give it one last go on 3 and see if it'll do it. If not, I might try it black and white oddly, because sometimes it's funny like that. He goes, "You're live. I'm going to not behave the normal way I would." Oh dear, dear, dear. Okay. Black and white. That was so nice, the ScanNCut yesterday as well. And it's got a nice new matte plating. And guess what's arrived? Finally, I have the rotary blade. So I will be having fun testing that. Hopefully next week. Yep, it can be frustrating, especially when you're live or recording, as you know, Deb. It knows when it's being watched. But one of those. Okay, so let's see if this one will behave any better. Okay, so First of all, let's take the noise that is the right hand side out the way at the moment. There we go. Okay, so it's not done too bad, but we can see that there's little bits here that it's just gone a little bit wrong. So if we go into the contrast, oh, don't you do this to me. Come on. Told you it knows that I'm live. Oh, it is not liking that. Bear in mind that the 1200 should be able to handle 900 lines. Let's start that again, shall we? I wouldn't have thought it had 900 lines there. Do. Anybody know any songs? Could do some tap dancing. Might fall in the sink. So yes, Roshu Blade. So I am planning on... It is really throwing a hissy fit today. You're going to make me get the ScanNCut out, aren't you? Okay. That's fine. I'll use the ScanNCut. It's because it knows that I haven't got the ScanNCut out. So this could be a little bit fiddly to get this out from here. There we go. So ScanNCut we can treat the same way. And we want to try and get it as close to that top left corner as possible. So usually with ScanNCut what I'll say is, you know, bring it in and bring it down. So if I pop back overhead for a minute. I was going to say, don't you start. So, one of the things you're going to find with your ScanNCut is because it's got this joined flap at the top, it can be a bit tricky to get up to this top edge. So just try and get it as far as you can, but then when you are cutting your mount, just bear that in mind. So at the moment I'm about, let's try and level that up a little bit as well, because you want to keep it level. We are about 2, nearly 3 mil off the top here. So when we do mount, you want to also adjust that position by about that same amount. Okay, load the mat. And then people say, why do you need a ScanNCut? That's why you need a ScanNCut. Okay, back to the machine. There was me thinking this was going to be a nice quick stream this afternoon. ScanNCut had other ideas. So it just goes to show that it is live and not edited. Okay, what is going on with my ScanNCut? Because it's not that many patterns. Yikes. Let's go back to colour. It had better looking colour. That's sensible. Zoom that in. Zoom that in. Okay. It's going to think about it for a bit again. If this still doesn't work, the other thing you can try is turning the lights on and off as well, and see if that makes a difference. Yep, you could turn it off and back on again if it is really misbehaving. So let's go around the outside. Hallelujah. There we go. So that's what we want to see. Something that has straight-ish sides until it gets to that first bit of foliage. And then we've got the nice shape to the rest of it. Hallelujah. So now we're going to go OK. And it's going to say, where do you want me to save this file to? Now, as I said before, when it comes to the machine, that tends to be where I want to stick anything that is temporary. Now, I have got to do a little bit of editing to the memory on my machine because it's got stuff on there from way back when. But also it has a corrupt file on the memory, which means that I can't actually delete it or edit it, or even just bring it back in to actually use the file. So at some point my machine is going to need its memory wiped, which fills me with deep joy. But we'll get there. Okay, so we now have this file, and I'm just going to go OK at that. Don't push your luck. So what I would say is, if you have space, try and leave your item in your scan mat. Okay, until we do the next step. So let's swap cutting mats. Now we're going to go back to our cutting mat, and we have some card. Now I pulled out 2 pieces of card, and it all depends on whether I can fit an A4 cut into this one in particular. So they're pretty much the same colour. In actual fact, they're the same card almost, but this one's got a little bit of fading on, so I could probably just chop that off. Let's go for that. Now, when it comes to cutting around the outside of things, if it's a straight edge, your trimmer is going to save more material than your ScanNCut will. So let's get this lined up to 21. So that gives me my width. And then we want to also mark our height. So I'm just going to offer that up to this ruler up the side. So let me just change view very quickly. So I have a little measuring guide on my trimmer here. so that I can just keep that nice and square. And then I want to just mark that at 297, which is A4. And that, try and make sure it's straight. So now we've got our A4 piece of card and we want to cut our mount from this. So, and let me just take that text down just a little. I just looked at it, oh, that's a bit big. Now that we've got a bit more text on the screen, I can see it a bit better. There we go. So, let's just move that just there. That bit. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to cut that design that we've just scanned from the centre, but we want to try and have it in the same position. So first of all, I'm going to position my A4 card so that it is up against this left-hand line, but has the same amount of space as what the original artwork had on the scan mat, which is about there. Okay, so with your mount, you've got a couple of options. You could have done this ScanNCut data and just turned it into a rectangle instead of having that fussy cutting. You could put a rectangle around your saved file, and I'll bring it in a moment. And that would mean that then you could go on and you could do other pieces of artwork that had that same frame that we set up initially and just swap them in and out. But if you're going to do something shaped like this, that means that you're going to be able to actually adhere it to your artwork. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind, that this will be permanent for that particular piece of artwork. Okay, so that's ScanNCut. I'm going to load my mat. I'm going to go home to reset, retrieve data from the machine, down to the bottom, and there's our framed image that we've just done. And we have that good to go. So we're going to go OK. Now, if we were to cut this out at the moment, this is going to literally cut right on the aperture line. Now, if your machine was 100% accurate, yes, you could do that and it would give it a different look again. But you want to give yourself a little bit of a margin for error. Plus, we've got those bits that are quite intricate and fiddly. So we're going to go to Edit, Object Edit. Now we're going to go to Offset. And we can give an amount. Now, if we want to widen that border, you want to work with a positive amount. If you want to hide some of the artwork that you've done so that you don't have any white line, you want to use a negative amount, so that's going to bring it in. Okay, so 1.5 mil is going to give us a much tidier line around the hedge sections here. So if you look at the black line as opposed to the green line, let's just see if I can get that a little bit closer. So you can just about see that you've got this really intricate green line, which is the original shape, and then we've got a slightly smoother outline, and that's your offset shape. So you can then increase that or decrease it as you need. So if I take that even up to 2, you're going to see that actually that looks a lot smoother and a lot better of a cut line. But there's a little bit of black dot, so you can see this better on screen than even what I can see it in person. And something like that can be an indication that there's something a little bit off with the offset. So at that point, you could either drag it back in to see if you can fix that way, or you can push it out one more. So I'm just going to take it out one more. And we can see that that's looking a lot better. There's no denser black dots than anywhere else. So 2.25mm. We can go, okay. He's going to think about it. Now bear in mind that obviously that initial outline is very complicated. So you now have both that complicated inner line and the smoother outer stroke. Now, to know which is selected, if you look at that red box down that right hand side, you're going to see that it goes just inside that outer black line. So that means your inside shape is selected. We can go OK and we can delete it. And then we've got a nice simple cut line left to work with. So if you'd got to this point and you found that there were some bits that you still weren't happy with, then you could still do an offset in or out in whichever way. But it will be based on that new line and not on the old design. Okay, so we're really going into some depth today, aren't we? I love it when you do things like this, because it's when you're practically working with the machine on complex things that you're going to find all these kind of tips and tricks for fixing. So if ever you make a mistake or you think you won't do something, it's an opportunity to learn. So we now have this offset line, and it should, in little inverted commas, it should be in the right place, because when we did our ScanNCut data, that was in more or less the same place as what our mount is now. Okay, so let's give it a go. Now, because there are still potentially little judders in this particular offset, I'm going to use the vinyl blade. Another option would be to use the blue manual blade if you have it, so that we are kind of giving that blade enough room to turn. So I'm going to go OK, OK, and to cut. And let's go start. So I'm going to get my double-sided tape ready. Adjust my camera back. Now that you don't need to see it quite so close. And let's bring in my image. Now, it's got a little bit mucky with the scan. Time to clean my scanner. So I'm just going to use a little plastic eraser to get any excess little marks off. Most of them will be covered by the frame, but where it's not, there we go. So we're nearly there. Don't know if I dare do the other bit of scanning after that. That was painful. So we have our mount and our image. And I quite like, because we've got this loose watercolour edge, that we've got this kind of decal finish to our frame. So let's just go overhead so you can see that in situ, like so. So we've gone around our anti-linear stamping, and what I am going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of wet glue, just to give me enough wiggle room to kind of get this in place, I think. And then peel my double-sided tape after. So I'm going to do double-sided tape around the outside edge. While I think of it, Deb, did you get a message from Ian last night about the video for Friday? If not, let me know and I'll resend it. Yep, you can use the same idea for cards. It could be a bookmark. It could even be a cover for a scrapbook. So if you want to do a watercolour panel and then do something like this, it could be 3D'd up. It could be that you've cut this out from mount board, because we can cut mount board in our machines. The student one in particular will work on CMs as well. So I used to cut mount board on my CM. So it's actually easier to cut than grey board. There you go. So let's get a little bit of glue, and I'm going to work with some two-way just for speed. So this is only going to temporarily tack it down. It's not there to hold it long term. Okay. Now we can go over the top. And I'm trying to pay attention to the bottom, the sides, and just get it as straight as possible. And I'm going to press down this inner section. Now you may find that it's not perfectly aligned all the way round for this one. And that's just because of the ScanNCut. No. The one that you sent for last week, but I did the wrong video because I was hopeless. I didn't download it in time. It's my fault. It's not one that you haven't done. Don't worry. It's entirely my fault. I met myself coming backwards and went, oh dear, I should have downloaded that. Okay, so I'm going to carefully peel away this tape. And stick that down. So once you have one in place, it's a bit easier to do the others because you're not worrying so much about that centre aperture moving. So I'm going to do this side next. Press that down, rotate it round. finally, let's do the top. This last one's the trickiest because we need to kind of get the tape, and you can guarantee that it will be the naughty one. Come on. There we go. Okay, so we have our framed image, and now when I put that on my wall, this mount is going to actually almost disappear because it's almost the same shade as my paint. So we're now going to make it look like it's going to float in our frame. That's okay here. It was a bit of a mad one here this morning, but I've actually managed to do everything I set out to do today, which is a rarity. And always good for the old to-do list. So I'm going to pop that into my frame and I can close that up. So far so good. So there it is in our frame, and if you wanted to stop there you could do, but I am going to just see if I can fuzzy cut out this other section just so we can see how that might look, because that might give you another idea. And then I promise I'll take the protective plastic off. Okay, so let's bring it in a watercolour piece. Now what I would say is you are going to have the central piece to your mount, so if you actually hand drew your painting or complete painting from scratch, then what you could do is photocopy it before you stick the frame on, and then you have a mat for another copy of it. There's an idea. So you can use the positive and the negative of your mount. Okay, so next what we want to do is kind of fussy cut this out. Now the stamp has some text on it, but don't be worried if it's stamped, because as long as it doesn't connect, the ScanNCut isn't going to try and join it to this shape, she says. Yeah, seeing the mood it's in, it might very well do. Okay. So, what did I do? To stamp the image and place the stamp in your stamp platform, I then use crackling campfire on this bottom curve of the seed head here and here and stamp that. Then I use wild honey on this top part of these seed heads and stamp that. And these are all archival. Then I did crushed olive for the stems and stamped that, which is where this impression came from. So far so good. Then to give me something to colour with, I stamped the images with oxide. So we had our crackling campfire around the base of our seed head. I used some spice pumpkin or spice marmalade, carved pumpkin in this top section of the seed heads. Then I used some peeled paint for the stem. Okay, now when I did the watercolour, it was still looking really kind of soft and pale, so I did go back into it and just kind of deepen these shadowy areas, so we had a lot more contrast using the Inktense pencil. So the same colours as yesterday, but then to that I added leaf green and mustard for the stem. Okay, so there we go, that was my watercolour. So I'm going to put that 1 inch down, but lined up to that left hand edge because we've got that big border. So let's go back overhead. That's okay there. That's weird, got the same, almost the same text on both. So I know the Facebook comments only come up on the on-screen chat at the moment. I think that is more of a Streamlabs issue, which is a shame. So I'm going to reset, scan, direct cut, use the machine. Oh, while I think of it to mention it, I was watching a video earlier where somebody was demonstrating direct cut to do fussy cutting, and they kind of made a little bit of a assumption, I think would be the right term, that what this actually means is that the image is coming from the machine or the image is coming from the computer, and it's not that at all. What it's saying is what item do you want to actually trace with. So for instance, most of the time you're going to choose the machine, and if it's something simple and there isn't a lot of work that you want to do to it after, then that's fine. Leave it going to the machine and you can just work on the machine. But if you want to do things like creating a shaped card around an item, if you want to create an aperture where you want that item to kind of appear inside that aperture, so a bit like let's say you had a card front and you wanted to put a circle aperture in it, but it's got like a floral design on the front. You can have it so that your aperture then goes around that floral design as well. You would want to do that in canvas rather than on the computer, rather than on the ScanNCut even, because the ScanNCut is not capable of doing that subtract function. So that's what that's there for. So, machine. We're going to go with colour again, because at least that one behaved. Okay, we're going to drag in our corners and drag in this way. Okay. And there you go. So it has found the outside of our little seed pods. Now, at the moment, you're going to notice that it hasn't cut out that hole in the centre. Don't worry about that. We may find that we don't actually want it to do that, but also we can fix that as well. So let's go OK, because it's found the actual thing all right. But what I want to do is, first of all, I'm going to edit. So I want to take away these items here. So if I go into multi-select window, we're going to drag that down. I'm going to go OK. And it's going to have all those elements that are outside our seed pod selected. And we can go and delete those. So we just got a seed pod. I'm going to go OK. Now at this point, I can go to offset and let's push that out. So we know that our mount has an offset of 2.25, but obviously it's not going to let us match that. It's going to jump. So I'm going to go to the nearest, which is 2 mil. Okay. We can go OK. OK. And I'm going to go to cut and let that cut. So far so good. So what we've done is we've traced around the outside of our shape. Now we need to do the inside. So let's see if it can help us. So I'm going to go back and back and back. Now we haven't taken our card off the mat. And let's see if we can manage to pick out the centre of our object. So I'm going to literally go and take this in as much as I can. Okay, and let's see if we can find it. Not quite. Need to go in a little bit more. Oh, still not quite there, and it's not letting me get quite into where I want to get to. Okay, no worries. I'm going to go, okay. I'm going to go home to reset, scan, direct cut again to the machine, and let's see if black and white can do it for us. Okay. I'm going to go start again. Okay, let's see if we can get it this time. So zoom in and in that way. I'm going to tap preview. Let's see if we can pick it that way. Now, because of the size of the arrows, we're going to struggle a little bit. So let's see if we can zoom in and do that way. No, it's still not quite getting there. Okay, so we'll give up on that one. Sometimes you can get it to do it, but on this occasion, the size is a little bit against us. It's just a fraction too small to get to that inside. It wasn't far off, but basically what you want to do is, let's say you want to get the centre out of a frame. You want it so that when you drag those arrows in, you go past the outside edges of the frame to be able to get that centre section. Okay, let's get this off here because it's waiting back. There we go. So we have our cut out little seed pod. Bring our frame back. So this is again kind of the first time that you can really truly see the two items together to decide whether you like it or not. And you get to decide whether you prefer this look of this section here, or if you want to put that seed pod over like so. So sometimes working with a little video over the top of you is actually quite a good thing, because you can kind of see a zoomed out version, and sometimes you're just a little bit too close to be able to go, well, actually that looks so much better having that little seed pod there to not having it there. Okay, so we could do like several copies of this outside shape to actually layer that up and make it thicker. Or if you have some thin foam adhesive, you can use that to raise it up. Or you can just literally go with it as it is and just stick that straight to your mount. So I think on this occasion I'm going to go straight to my mount. Other times I might just do that little bit of raise just to get that drop shadow. The other thing to look at is how is it joining up at its end. So up here you're going to have a much easier time of it than down here, where we've got the intersection of the red up against the offset offset edge of our die cut. There you go. Let's get the words in the right order. So I'm just going to take that down just a little bit, and it's going to be those little millimeters at the bottom that's going to make a difference. So I'm quite liking that. So let's do some more double-sided tape, and that will call it a day. So I hope you've enjoyed our little workshop. I had planned on this being so much quicker this afternoon. This evening, yeah, it feels like that by now. So there won't be any live stream tomorrow, or indeed Thursday, but do join Deb, so long as I remember to sort the video, on Friday at 11. I may or may not be in attendance. It all depends on whether we're done for the day or not. Who knows? Okay, so let's just line this up. Once it comes out, it kind of covers up that edge there as well. So I'm just going to kind of rotate that before placing it. And there we go. And to finish it off, let's peel back our protective plastic. Unfortunately, the one isn't still on the front. But at some point I'll replace the actual plastic in the frame. And there we go. Ta-da! Thanks, Deb. So, we would love to see what ideas this inspires, or any of the videos. So there is a challenge on the group that we really want to see people entering. The deadline to do so is the 28th of March. And at the moment it says that the prize is going to be the Canvas Workspace Notebook, or Project Planner rather. But you never know what might turn up instead. There may be more than that. There may be a complete surprise. So you'll have to wait and see. And thanks, Thea. What you're going to find is it took a long time to get this mount to work, but that is entirely down to my ScanNCut, so I do apologise. It really does need that reset now, unfortunately. I'm not looking forward to doing it. So, take care, and I look forward to seeing you next week, if not before. So, Monday at 7, we have SJ. And she is going to be doing something interesting. Then next Wednesday, I am planning on doing some HTV. And I have a colour scheme in mind already, because I want to do something for me, which is very rare. I'm usually giving stuff to other people, but I want to do something for me. So, take care and bye.